everybody to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics, and on this week's show, we are talking two films with central female lead characters. This will be interesting, actually. The Royal Hotel and Totally Killer. And joining me to talk about these films is my good friend, Karen Peterson. What's up, Karen?
Hey, how are you?
I'm very good. Good to see you as always.
You too.
Love the background. For the Royal
Other than where they're at, I would actually love to go to the Australian outback right now.
That's a good way to caveat it because where they end up at is not all that great. This movie's really interesting. Let's start with the Royal Hotel. This is directed by Kitty Green, who a couple years ago did the film The Assistant, which also starred Julia Garner, and that was the film that came out kind of in the wake of the Me Too, speaking up, movements, and it was about a woman who was working for kind of a Harvey Weinstein-esque person, but it was not like an over-the-top kind of film or anything like that. It was really kind of a character study more than anything else, kind of subtle, So, and this movie's interesting because it's kind of an extension of that in some ways. Yeah, it starts off with these two women on a party tour, basically, and they need money, so they take a job in an Australian mining town, working at a bar, and it's a place that is full of guys, and it's full of guys who are, well, let's just say they don't always keep their hands to themselves. They don't always say the right thing. They don't always treat women the way they should, and it becomes like this sort of like kind of a pressure cooker situation because I was kind of dreading every moment that they were in this place, worrying about what the next guy was going to do.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was trying to explain this movie to you before when I had seen it and you hadn't seen it yet. And now I'm curious to get your opinion that you have seen it. So give me your thoughts on the Royal Hotel.
Oh, I think it's great. I really like the way that Kitty Green sets the scene. I think she does such a good job of building up and like introducing some really important things about these characters from the beginning when we see them on this party cruise, and then when we see, oh, now they have to, these vacationers, and they have to just kind of do what they can to just make some quick money so they can get back to vacationing.
Yeah.
And they're kind of warned, you're going to get a lot of male attention when you go here, and you see one is very reluctant and the other is just like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's fine. And so when they get out there, it's really interesting to see the way that what we've first been introduced to with these two women just really becomes fleshed out in the way that we really see how they interact with each other, how they interact with these people around them. And I really think that Green is such a talented director at like ramping up the tension of really, she does such a great job of just really drawing you in and never going too far. She never takes it like that extra step farther than it needs to go,
Yeah.
but she gives you so much of just anxiety, but in a like not in a way that it's like, oh, I can't watch this, it's too intense either. So she's great.
Yeah, no, I like what you said about how she kind of sets up these characters. When we first see them, they're in the middle of they're on a party boat, and Julia Garner's character, I think Green does this on purpose because she's allowing us to make a first impression, like to have an idea in our head about who these characters are. So
Yeah.
Julia Garner's character, first time we see her, she's making out with this guy. So we get the
Mhm.
impression in our head, okay, these are girls who are out here ready to party. They're here to hook up with guys and this kind of thing. And Jessica Henwick's character is the one who's kind of like, hey, we got to get on the ball here and get some money because we're out of money. She seems like she's the responsible one. And then you get into this hotel, into this bar, and it's not that the situation's reverse. It's just that Henwick's character is more like, do what you have to do to get through the moment, get through the day. And Garner's character is like, I'm not here to tolerate this. To tolerate this.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's so good that Green gives us this introduction to them, because as things do start to get more um as we do start to get more invested in their story when they're out in the middle of nowhere, um, and Julia Garner's character Hannah starts to really say things aren't right. This isn't okay. We know that it's not just because she is inherently like pessimistic or paranoid. We know that she's a girl who likes to have fun. She knows that something's wrong. And so it's really good that we got that introduction so that we trust her and we know that she has these good instincts about her.
Yeah. And I like that we see degrees in the girls too. Like um like in the case of Henwick's character, she's almost accepting in some ways of what the guys are doing. Like she goes along with them to like when they go a little too far, when they make crude jokes, she kind of goes along with it to some degrees. And it's almost like a Stockholm sort of thing. She's in the middle of it and she's just kind of in the middle of the atmosphere and she's just kind of letting it go. And it's like degrees of acceptance to what these guys are doing. There are degrees of acceptance of it. And Garner's character is never like that. I think she tries to deal with it, but then she gets that label of being like the frowny one, like the sad and the angry one. But no, she's not that. She's she's acknowledging the situation for what it is. And of course, in this environment, that's not going to fly very well.
I think I don't know. I think with Henwick's character Liv, she's kind of this in between extremes, or not extremes, but in between two very different like ways of handling the situation, because they come into this place and they're taking over for these two British girls who are leaving, who are super into all the male attention that they're getting. And it does not faze them at all. It doesn't bother them. They love it. And so now they're leaving. And then you've got Hannah, who's very like, no, none of this is okay. And then so you've got Liv, who's somewhere in between. She's like not quite as chaotic party girl as those British girls were, but she's also not quite as like put up walls as Hannah is either. So it's interesting to see how she's kind of that balance in the middle.
See, I like that we got to see those British girls before they left. My impression that I got from them was that they probably didn't start off the way they ended. Like I feel like they might have been against what was going on at first too, and then their resistance kind of got worn down all during the trip as well until they finally, or maybe they were just happy to leave. And they're like, it's our last night, so we'll cut loose now. Maybe they weren't like this at all the rest of the time until the final day. And they're like, let's get the hell out of here. Let's have some fun. But
that's so interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off. It's so interesting just because to me, like my impression watching them was like, those are party girls that were just like, yeah, bring it on. Like these cute minors in this town. Cause like those guys are like, some of them are really cute. They can be very nice and charming. If you're into like, if you're fine with crass jokes and stuff, which they probably were. And so to me watching it, I had a totally different impression of those British girls. I thought they were like totally down for everything. And so for these guys who are there, because it's not like any of them, sorry, something flying in my face. But it's not like any of these guys really at any point fully are, I don't want to spoil too much, but like you never know for sure if any of them are actually like predatory. They definitely, some of them are very what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, like they kind of latch on and they kind of have dibs, I guess. But there's this element where it's like the danger is really more in us not knowing what their intentions are, not in anything that's ever overtly done.
Yeah.
Until you get to a certain point, and then it's like, something really bad is about to happen.
But there are degrees to the guys, like in this movie too. Like the guys aren't all the same, but you get the impression that this is, like you say, this is sort of like this remote town where it's like probably like 95% guys there, and women come around is super rare, or except for like the one old lady who's always at the bar, that none
Hmm.
of the guys are hitting on, right? Like there's so you get the feeling that when women come around, yeah, the guys get territorial, right? And so
Yeah.
you get like the one guy, like the James Freshville character who seems super sweet. He's really nice, he's kind of protective, but he's also not someone the girls are interested in.
Hmm.
Like he doesn't have like he's kind of like the guy who's like immediately in the friend zone, like that kind of guy. And then you got the guy who's a charmer, kind of got an edge to him, kind of works his way into the girl's trust. He's just fun enough. He's kind of smart. He's crass too, but he seems like a normal guy. And then you got the guy who's just outright just kind of a dick.
Yeah.
So you got like these degrees to the guys, but you see the way they all work various angles to get in close to the women. And I
Hmm.
think this is one of the things that I think I really like about Kitty Green in the two movies that we've seen with her is the way she has, and she's a woman, she's probably obviously probably dealt with this stuff her entire life, but the way she can bring it to life on the screen, the situations that women find themselves in, like over and over again with men,
Yeah.
and how these situations change depending on the guy and the various degrees of power, because power is a thing in this movie too. These are two young women who have no money. They're off on their own, surrounded by guys. They're working for a guy, Hugo Weaving's character, who doesn't really seem to care. Right, he's got his own issues.
Yeah.
And so power is a part of this as well. There's a lot going on in this movie for a movie that's contained in one little location, and I think that's what adds to like the kind of the ominous nature of it, the ominous atmosphere of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Kitty Green just is so good at, like I was saying, setting a scene where, like, throughout this movie, you always know that anything could happen. Like, this could erupt at any moment,
Yeah.
but you don't need to see that happen to know that it's possible. And you don't need to see that happen to feel some catharsis, as things unfold and as things quiet down too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, she's very talented, and I cannot wait to see what she does next. I really can't.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what she does next too. If she continues this sort of thread, she could make like a trilogy of movies, kind of following the same kind of thread, if she wanted to. But I'm anxious to see what she does next as well. The Royal Hotel is really good, and it's
Yeah.
out. It's out, I believe, in theaters and in digital right now. I believe, right?
I don't know if it's digital yet. I know it's still in some theaters. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but
yeah,
yeah, but just to your point too, I think most women have experienced some degrees of everything that happens in this movie, and it's done in such a way that it's like very recognizable as, wow, yeah, I've had that exact experience. And it kind of, in a way, it kind of validates the experiences, because one of the things that is very easy to do when you're in a situation where you're getting this attention, you don't necessarily want it, but the people, like these guys that are doing it, aren't necessarily being creepy or rude. It's just you kind of perceive that. And so it's really easy to start gaslighting yourself and thinking, like, oh no, I'm getting this wrong. He didn't mean it that way. Like, why would I be
yeah,
freaked out about this?
yeah,
And so watching the way that she does it in this movie, it's like it's very validating to the experiences that I've had, where I'm like, no, I was right to feel creeped out by that. It's okay. That wasn't an overreaction.
yeah. That seemed to be like the reaction of the Hugo Weaving character is like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
dismissive of the situation and the reality that the girls are facing. I kind of wish that I wish they could have done more. Green kind of introduces, because there in this location in that there's a lot of Aborigines working there, and you can see kind of how they're second class also in a way.
Hmm.
But we didn't really get a chance to do much with that. But I know there's a lot going on in this movie already. So, but yeah, I can't recommend this movie highly enough. I really did enjoy it. And I'm a big fan of Jessica Henwick, who I've liked since Iron Fist, and Julia Garner's great in just about everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really liking this. A little bit more people go and see it. It never really got like a major release here in DC. Like I don't even know if it played at any theaters here in DC.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
I don't know if it did or not. I haven't seen it in any theaters around here.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that it can get some kind of a release, or at least digital if it's not already out on digital.
Yeah, I just checked. It doesn't look like it's out on digital yet, but I think probably next week it will be on PVOD.
Should be soon. All right, let's move on to the next film. Another one that I liked and I didn't expect to. Totally Killer, starring Kiernan Shipka, who I met the first time with you a few years ago
That's right.
for Sabrina. And
She's delightful.
she really was. And of course, people know her from Mad Men and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And this kind of film kind of felt like a Happy Death Day sort of movie to me. It felt like it was made by Christopher Landon, even though it wasn't. And it's Shipka's character she plays a girl whose mom is killed by a serial killer. So she goes back in time with the use of a friend's time machine, just all bonkers stuff. Goes back in time and confronts not only her younger version of her mom and all the people that she's known throughout her life, but also the serial killer who attacks her mom in the future. All bizarre stuff, and it's really funny, really really quirky. And the thing I really liked about it, that I really dug, Karen, is that it totally breaks all of the time travel rules. Like when I was watching this, I kept thinking of The Flash and like just the litany of time travel movies that we've had over the last year that are all dark and serious and don't do this because you'll affect this and blah blah blah, and everybody's sad, and her character is just like, I don't really care. I'll have to deal with that stuff when I get back. And she's freaking all the rules, everything. She's telling everybody everything. Everybody knows everything that's going on. And it's just, the things that I liked about this movie the most, I think that was the thing I enjoyed best, was like, they just don't give a shit. And that's the best thing about this movie.
One of the things I was thinking about actually was, like, I was imagining what Rhodey and Bruce Banner would have to say about this during that conversation in Endgame.
Right. I wish they could be like watching it and we could like see them freaking out, like all like divergent paths and all sorts of weird crap going on.
Yeah.
But you told me that you like this movie too, right?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's definitely one that is silly and it doesn't take itself seriously at all. And that's why it's so entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sucker for an 80s vibe. I was an 80s kid. And so it's just, I always enjoy when filmmakers go back to that time period. I always enjoy seeing what they're going to pick out to highlight as far as music and other pop culture references, fashion, stuff like that. And one of the things that I loved was just like the references to like the feathered hair and everything. It was just like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so great.
Yeah, I love this that it's set near this like amusement park. So you got to see all these rides. There are rides that look familiar to me from like the 80s, like especially like the ride at the end where he's kidding.
Yeah, that spinny one.
Because I remember as me and my friends, we rode that at Kings Dominion, which is an amusement park near here, and they had one there before they got rid of it. I think they probably got rid of it because of people like us. We would ride it over and over again. And we would just do crazy things like crawl along the walls as we were riding through it.
Like you flip upside down. Did you do that one?
Somebody would be an asshole and like spit in the middle of it, so the spit would randomly hit someone. You never know who it's going to hit. That would be the game, actually. Stuff like that. And it's probably why they got rid of it. But I love that we called back to stuff like that and how dangerous those things were back then and how silly those things were. But yeah, I thought this movie was absolutely great, and I did not know what it was going to be. I knew what it was about, but nothing could have prepared me for what the tone was going to be. And like I said, it kind of was like Scream and a whole bunch of and like a Happy Death Day sort of combo movie, which I thought was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I thought that was the exact right tone. If this had been like tried to be a serious movie, it would have just been ridiculous. It wouldn't have made any sense at all. But because they made it really lighthearted and very meta, and just having fun with the 80s vibes and the slasher movie genre, and just kind of just really embracing all the different types of vibes and movie genres and tropes that it was pulling in together. I think it just did such a good job of just being fun, a little bit clever. Um, there's also, the whodunit element of it too, where you're like trying to figure out like who is the slasher killer person? Like who is doing this? And
Yeah,
yeah.
in the screening I was at, people were actively involved in the movie. Like people were just like screaming out who they thought the killer was going to be and just having fun with it. And I found myself getting caught up in it too. Like I thought I had an idea who the killer was, and it was one of those movies that is very easy to have fun with, and it's on Prime Video, so most people will probably watch it at home and won't watch it in theaters like I did. But I
Yeah.
think it's one of those movies that you could easily watch with friends. I talk a lot about movies that are movies that we think are great that I would never take my friends to. I would never watch with a friend, right?
Yeah.
Because they would never get it.
Or very specific friends. You can take very specific movies,
Right. Most of my
Yeah.
friends, if I took them to something like, we always talk about like Power of the Dog or something like that, as a prime example of a movie that we think is great that gets all these accolades, and then we watch it with friends, and they're like, why am I watching this? Stuff like that.
It's
This is
so weird
kind of
because that's the exact example that popped into my head.
yeah, it's like the perfect example. It's like this acclaimed movie, but your friends would never watch it. And they did,
Yeah.
they'd be mad at you if you took them to it.
Yeah.
But this movie is one of those movies you could watch. I could watch with all of my friends. Like I think every single one of my friends would like it, would watch it and like it, and have fun
Hmm.
with it. So it's just one of those films, and I'm hoping people see it. It's directed by Nahnatchka Khan, who I'm not all that familiar with. I know her work. I know the series Fresh Off the Boat, and I know the movie, the Netflix film, Always Be My Maybe, is one that she did, but I have not seen it. Have you seen Always Be My Maybe? Did you see that?
Yeah. I loved it.
Okay.
It's got one of my favorite Keanu Reeves cameos ever.
Oh, I know that cameo. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a really fun movie. So, and this is a very different movie from that one,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see elements of like Khan's
Hmm.
kind of identity, directorial identity in both. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, we got two movies that we both highly recommend. Both very different films.
Yeah.
And that we both highly recommend. The Royal Hotel and Totally Killer. Karen, is there anything else that's coming out that you've had a chance to see that you want to talk about?
That I've already seen. Oh man, I feel like I haven't seen much lately. And right now I'm just looking forward to next week.
I know one that
Killers of the
we could
Flower.
talk about for a moment before we get out of here, and that's The Burial. I know
Oh yeah,
that
that's
you've
right.
seen that, and you didn't like it, if I remember right.
It's not that I didn't like it. I thought it was a good story. I just felt like it could have been told a little bit better.
Yeah. So The Burial, for people who don't know, stars Jamie Foxx, Tommy Lee Jones. It's based on a true story. Tommy Lee Jones plays the owner of a family funeral home business. Kind of gets screwed by a bigger funeral home company. And so he decides to sue. And so he hires this flamboyant, kind of Johnny Cochran-esque lawyer played by Jamie Foxx to defend him, because it's in the South, and it's gonna be a black jury, and they think that having a black lawyer will play a big part, will be in their favor. I saw it just a few days ago. Talked about it yesterday on TV, and I was surprised. I really liked the movie. I think it's actually really good. My initial impressions of it that I told you about when I saw the trailers for it was that it seemed to have a weird identity. I didn't know what it was trying to do, and that held true watching the full film.
Yeah.
I felt like at sometimes it felt like this could have been better served as a drama, but then again, it would have taken away from the best things that are from Jamie Foxx, and Jamie Foxx is
Hmm.
probably the best thing about the movie. He's absolutely tremendous in this, charismatic, just presence out the ass in this film. He's just really great here. Shows depths to the character that grow over time. He starts off as kind of this, you think he's just sort of like this, circus ringmaster, but he's got levels to him. I thought he was fantastic in this. So if you had changed the tone of the movie, it would have taken some of that away, I think. But at the same time, I do think the movie kind of undercuts its seriousness at times too. So but
Yeah.
I couldn't recommend it. That's also on Prime Video, just like Totally Killer is. So it's worth
Mhm.
checking out. But yeah, I still had the same problems that I thought I was gonna have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I thought Jamie Foxx was fantastic. I think it was one of those, it was the type of performance where it's really big and boisterous, and he's so good at that. And yet he manages to not take it too over the top. He really has he has the ability now to kind of pull back from going too far, and he does a great job with that in this movie. And I thought Tommy Lee Jones was good too. It's a much more subdued character, and the two of them together have some really great scenes. They had surprisingly good chemistry, I thought.
Yeah. When I was watching it, I was thinking because it's set in the 90s and it reminded me of those like John Grisham movies. If this had come out in
Mm-hmm.
the 90s, it totally would have been like this totally star-driven John Grisham courtroom thriller. Would have been a
Yeah.
lot more serious. It would have been one of those movies. And there are
Mm-hmm.
elements of that in this. When I was watching those two together, I was like, this would come out in the 90s, these two together in a movie like this would have been like, wow, like 200
Oh
million
yeah.
movies. This would have been gigantic. So I kind of liked watching those two together in this and thinking about what might have been in a totally different time. But yeah, it's a good film, a nice underdog story. You can't go wrong with that kind of thing right
Mm-hmm.
now, especially the anti-corporate type of message that this movie has too. There's things about it that I know people are gonna like.
I
Uh,
really appreciated that the villain was Canadian.
Yes,
You
that too.
don't see that very often.
You don't see that very often. Lots of good little roles in this too. I thought Journey Smollett was a lot of fun, and I always like Mamadou Athie, like in everything I see him in. I think he's a really good actor. Except for that movie he did where his family was like making ribs or something. Whatever that movie was, where he wanted to his family owned a rib business, and he wanted to be a sommelier.
Oh,
Yeah,
I did not see that.
it's a Netflix movie. You should look it up. It's actually not
Okay.
that great, but so maybe don't look it up. But yeah, his family owned a rib business they wanted him to be a part of, but he had a dream of being a sommelier. That was the movie. It's like the
That's
first one
great.
I've seen him in like a lead role other than like in the Get Down. So, but anyway, but he's good in this too.
Nice.
So we did 3 movies today. So
Yeah.
rather than two. So it worked out very well. Things always work out
Okay.
when Karen Peterson's here. So
What can I say?
yeah, that's the way things go.
One other recommendation I do have, speaking of Netflix, is Mike Flanagan's new series, Follow the House of Usher,
I was gonna
is
watch that
now.
today.
It's good. It's
Okay.
good. I had a lot of fun with it. It's not just based on House of Usher from Edgar Allan Poe. It ties in several Poe works in ways that are very interesting and sometimes very clever, sometimes a little bit silly, but unintentionally, I think. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Kind of wish they hadn't sort of given away Carlo Gugino's character, kind of. But
Hmm.
it's
Yeah, they
still
should have kept that one like just
better secret. Yeah, better
yeah.
secret. But yeah, it looks great to me. I don't always watch the Mike Flanagan stuff, but I've been wanting to watch this one. So yeah, I'm gonna check it out for sure. Okay,
Nice.
Peterson, where tell everybody where they can find your stuff, please.
Well, I write for Citizen Dame and I podcast there as well. So citizendamepod.com to find my work there. Occasionally I write for Variety. Hopefully the strike will end soon so I can go back to doing that. Um, and you can find me on social media, particularly Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson.
You also have to do another podcast, The Watch and Talk, correct?
I do. I always forget to mention that,
No.
that one, and I love it too. I don't
What
know
they
why. We need to
shilling
have you
for you
back on
for?
there sometime.
Shilling for you for? It's your job.
I know. Sorry. Yeah, that's the watch and talk. Our website's not working right now, but the podcast is everywhere that you get podcasts. So
All right. Well, Karen, this has been fantastic as always. Thank you for joining me on Cinema Royale this week. I look
thank
forward
you.
to talking to you some more about some other stuff pretty soon. And yeah, this has been great. Yes, thank you. Thanks everybody for tuning in to Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Hobson. You can find me every day at punchdrunkcritics.com. If you're in DC, you can find me on channel 7 News DC on Fridays, and on WETA Around Town Best Bets on channel 26 PBS. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.